Monday, December the 16th, and it seems that the concerns about the China deal over the weekend not being clear enough didn't prevent the market from moving higher again. The Dow was up 100 points, the NASDAQ almost, and the S&P 500 was sort of right in the middle, 0.71%. The volumes were reasonable, a little low in the Dow, but the volumes were pretty good in NASDAQ and pretty reasonable in the S&P 500. But we had the initial enthusiasm, and then we just sort of waned the rest of the day and either flatlined or, in the case of the Dow, dropped off a little bit. The key thing, though, is that the market breadth indicator is going to move up because advancers to decliners were 2 to 1. So now we're going to move to this high. We're going to move probably right in line with this high. And let's see, this is a test to see if we're on our way to overbought, which we weren't able to do the last time we took a run at it, which was the end of October, beginning of November. The key thing in the S&P 500 was this. Let me just go back here. The key thing in the S&P 500 was this breakout in the S&P. And we've been following this trend line that has its origin in 1994. I tweeted a picture of it earlier. But you just have to look here in 2019, 1, almost 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And then we had this breakout. But that actually goes all the way back to 1994. If you look, sorry, I hope I'm not making you dizzy here, but you look at here, trend line 1, and then the trend line picked up again in 2019, and now we've broken out over it, just slightly, but it's much more clear on the daily, where we have a no gap, but clear move above. And let's see if we're going to come down and test that line, and that would give the line some credibility if it were to get tested. Apple up almost $5, 1.78%, and it had the same little breakaway, but it did leave a gap. Now this is just yet another high, so we can move this to a new closing high, and the S&P we can also move to a new high. Let's look at Apple's volume. Pretty significant. So now we've had 3 days in a row where we're over the 20-day moving average in volume. I haven't looked at options volatility, but I did buy another set of 5 contracts for January 280, 285 calls, 5 of them for $2.45. That means that the risk is $245, but the gain could be $255. So it's almost 1 to 1. And those are good enough odds for me. The SMI on a short term is pretty much very close to the highest that it's ever been. The slow-moving SMI can continue at this level, but typically what we see is that once the fast-moving SMI hits the top, it starts to make its cycle to the bottom. And it can do that with very little change in the slow-moving SMI if it does it fairly quickly. But we've seen it get to this high, a high, and then pull back only to make a higher high, a higher high again, not come all the way back down to zero, go back to its high, not come all the way back down to oversold, and then come back again. You can see that there was some forces trying to drive the price down, but they haven't been successful, because you can see the institutional buying on October 31st, November 1st, November 13th, November 15th, December 3rd, December 6th, December 12th, 13th, and 16th. So that's an awful lot of institutional buying going on. And we can expect to see it going up to 288, which is the 161.8. Now, how do we know that that Fibonacci is a good Fibonacci? Well, let's see let's take out the SMIs for a second. Let's see if our Fibonaccis have been faithful so far. Remember, this Fibonacci takes this wave from September 27th down to December 28th of last year, and then says when it got back to 100%, which was early October, it continued to move up and it stalled at the 138.2. That means that it's a Fibonacci that traders are looking at, because there was a resistance at 138.2 once, twice, and now we've taken off. So we are headed to 288.80, probably before Christmas time. So I'm glad now I have 15 contracts in January and February verticals for Apple. 270, 275, 275, 280, 280, and 285. Caterpillar down 17 cents. Did it have volume? All the talk in the China deal has been about agricultural products. Is there going to be any machinery in there? Nobody's been talking about it, so that hasn't been helping the Caterpillar price very much. Now, Home Depot had a very strong rebound of $2.05, up almost a full percent and better than the market. The key thing is that it's over the 8 EMA, and we've seen our stochastic momentum indicators turn back positive again, and I do believe that they are headed higher. And I still have a small position of 3 contracts in Home Depot for January 220 and 225s. That's a stretch. So I'm going to look at some tomorrow, and I might want to add, I might want to add some 215, 220s or more 220, 225s. I'll decide on that tomorrow. WDC continued to push up, hit the top of the cloud, and pulled back. Chiku span hit the top of the cloud as well. So if this was our high today, and it wasn't quite the top of the cloud, well, it sure as heck was the top of the cloud for the Chiku span. And we said we wanted to look at it on Friday, and following it today, we saw that the Chiku span went through the 50 and stopped dead on the cloud and pushed back. You know, this is really important stuff. If you're looking for resistance and where to set a point to sell, if you're a short-term swing trader, you want to set it based on the Chiku span's resistances. It's going to work all the time. Whirlpool, little disappointing day, again, because there's no sign that the Chinese are interested in anything other than agricultural products, because they've had such a disaster in their pork industry that their people are looking for more protein. Amazon up 0.45%, really nothing to call home about. We said to look at the top of the cloud and the 50 EMA on Friday, and to look at it today, and that's exactly what happened today. The top of the cloud and the 50 continued to be resistance again. We also said to look at the Chiku span, and if you look at today, this was our high today. The Chiku span hit the cloud and pushed back. So we are going to be looking at that. Put it in here and move it down. We're going to be looking at that tomorrow as being potential resistance again. But once again, Chiku span has a lot of work to do to get into the cloud, get through the 50, the 8, the 200, and the 200 SMA. That's a lot of work to before it moves significantly higher. So where are we going with the S&P? I believe because of this breakout, we are going to move higher. Tomorrow might be a retest of this line, but if it does, let's set an alert here. Create an alert to see if it comes down and touches the trend line. We want to know that, because if it touches the trend line and moves back up, we're going to be making new highs.